a chance to seal it. It's done. It's Georgie Kelly. Rotherham United's pathway back to the Championship is opening up.
Hello everybody, welcome to New York Talk. And normal service is resumed. We're back talking about the greatest team in South Yorkshire, Rotherham United. And I'm very happy about that, to be honest with you. We will basically preview, as back to normal, we will be previewing the Saturday afternoon game, a Saturday lunchtime game, which will be Bristol City. We've got the scouting report with Mick spoke to somebody from the Bristol City end, which we can all have a good laugh at. We'll put our predictions in place and just have a good old laugh about Rotherham United being back in business. We have Mick back with us. Hello, Michael.
Good evening, or morning, or whatever the time it is you're listening.
You okay? Danny's with us. How's it going, Danny?
Hello, everybody. It feels so nice to be talking Rotherham United for a change.
It does. Absolutely does. And Joy, with making your proper podcast debut. Thank you for joining us, Joy.
You're very welcome. Glad to be with you.
So, I suppose we've got Rotherham United stuff to talk about. We'll talk about the game and everything else. I suppose there's one place to start today with transfer rumours. We're not even in January, but the transfer rumour mill is in full swing already. And that's with Dan Barlasser being linked to Middlesbrough. Danny, I don't think this is going to take us too long, to be honest with you, but under what circumstances could you see him leaving us in January? Because I struggle to see a realistic scenario where he leaves in January.
I think there's one of two possibilities that can happen in January. Number one, Middlesbrough, if it is Middlesbrough, that is the front runner, if there even is a front runner at this point. If the front runner offers us 2-3 million for Barlasser, we could let him go potentially. Or he signs a new deal, and if he doesn't sign a new deal, then we let him go for free in January because in the summer, because he's more of an asset to us to see out his current contract and not sign one than he is to bring the money in. It's a sort of a Michael Smith situation. It was more valuable to the club to keep him here for the full length of his contract and to let him go on a free than he is to cash in but lose that asset in midfield. So yeah, Middlesbrough, if you're the front runner, money on the table, if you please. Don't dilly-dally.
Yeah. Just go through who's with us. Neil Liversidge with us. Kim Hayward, Simon Thorne. We've got a few other people with us. Sam Darby's saying there's £5 million on the table. Now, I think realistically, Mick, I think that's probably what he's worth. If he has 2 years left in his contract, that's what he's worth. When somebody's got 6 months on the contract, Middlesbrough would be absolutely balmy to pay £5 million for somebody they can have for free in 6 months. Could you see a five? Do you think it's realistic? A £4-5 million bid?
No. Why would you? Why would you? It'd be madness. And bearing in mind Middlesbrough's parting of ways with Chris Wilder and his desire to bring players in, I don't see Middlesbrough willing to pay £5, let alone 5 million. So. It's just people are starting early, aren't they? They're a bit bored. There's been no Football League action or any to note anyway for the past 4 weeks. They need something to write about that's not Ronaldo or Messi, don't they? So it's garbage. It's nonsense. Even if you looked at it as a third party, right? You know how valuable he is to our midfield. So, and our aim is to stay in the division this season. He runs out of contract in the summer. We've offered him a new one by all accounts. Whether he accepts that is another matter. On what planet would a team who get rid of a player that's so valuable to them when they can just let him go for free? Why would we take peanuts for him in January? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it's just clickbait as far as I'm concerned. That's all it is, clickbait. So nobody's going to pay that amount of money for him with 6 months left. Not happening.
John Morel says 1.5 million tops. No one's going to bid more than that for a player with 6 months left in his contract.
Agreed.
Joy, do you agree with that? For me, I agree with John there. That's with the length of contract, that's probably his value, and we're not going to sell him because of this sell-on clause. So I can't see him going, to be honest.
No, I totally agree with what Mick's just said and what John commented on. You're not going to get that sort of money. You're not going to get nowhere near 5 million for someone who's only got 6 months under contract. And like you say, I don't think it's worth us even considering it with the sell-on clause that's got to go back to Newcastle.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd end up with a bobbin and an orange, wouldn't we?
Mm.
Nothing comparatively. But what he could provide in the interim as key to our midfield would possibly be, key to us staying up into the division. So it's a no-brainer to me. He stays.
And coupled with that, Joy, it's probably worth 5 million to us to stay up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is zero sense in the article, for in inverted commas. It's just an ill thought out clickbait is all it is. So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past a championship club paying over the odds on a player, to be honest with you. It has happened in the past and it will happen in the future. So they could. I don't think they will, and I don't think they should, and I hope they don't come in with that kind of cash. But the championship's a crazy league for many reasons, and that's one of them, is that people are willing to pay stupid money for stupid things. It's not stupid.
The thing is as well, they've not been actually pulling any trees up this year, have they?
No, exactly. No, I agree. We'll talk about more contract details in a second. Philip Halls, though, first of all, says he has to make a confession. He usually listens at night in New Zealand and always seems to nod off to the sound of Mick's voice. It's not because he's boring, but he is. It's just the soporific tones. Is that all right?
I need to know what that means. I'm going to Google it.
I hope it's a dig. I really hope it's a dig.
It will be.
You lull him to sleep, Mick.
Well, I've been told that before, usually because I'm boring.
Yeah. While Mick's Googling, John Morell says the only issue is if player wants to leave and someone's interested, you aren't going to get a committed player for 6 months. I think the good thing with Dan Barlaser, Danny, is that he seems one of the most professional players in the squad. Now, obviously, that's got Richard Wood and people like that. But we know for a fact there were bids in for him in January, only Blackpool, but they were still interested in him. He never looked like a man who had his head turned. He looked like it almost seemed to focus him a bit more and made him play better. So from that point of view, I think we ain't going to worry about that with Barlaser.
Yeah, I think with Barlaser, he's just committed to not just his contract with us, but I think the idea of Rotherham United, and I think he has now committed to the idea that Matt Taylor's forming with the club as well. Because we thought he was playing well under the previous regime, but he seems to have stepped up again under a new manager. And new manager's not messed about. He knows the players he's offered contracts to. And like he said, when he first came here, it was his first job and it's already in, Rumour has it Dan is one of the players who's been offered a new contract. They've not named names specifically, but we all know whose contracts are up, so we have a vague idea. And Barlaser has said in the past that if the money's right, he'll stay. And if the money's right, he's going to stay. If not, and he turns it down, we'll probably say to him, right, we're going to keep holding you until his contract runs out. And he'll go, yeah, no worries, and just commit to it. He's a sort of player that isn't big-headed to try and force the move away at all. He's the sort of player who's just going to go, you know what, I'm going to crack on with this, see it out, and then get on with it. It's like Chio strikes me as that sort of player as well. He'll still see out that contract with his full ability until it's time for him to move on, and then he'll move on professionally.
Yeah. What are the chances, mate? Let's talk about the contract situation. Matt Taylor suggested we've offered contracts to everybody we want to keep. Obviously, we don't know who that is, but I suspect almost everybody out of the contract will have an offer, I would have thought. Let's start with Dan because we're on him. Chances of him staying. I mean, the thing is with Barlaser that people can offer him more money than us. We know that. We know based on the Smith situation probably what our limit is, and we know ballpark what that is. He's got another contract. The thing with Michael Smith was that was his last real contract, weren't it? That was Michael Smith's peak value. Dan Barlaser has not reached his peak value yet, so there is a scenario where he can say, right, sign a 3-year contract, just give it an idea, and say when in a couple of years' time, as long as we're all staying in Championship together, off you go. You'll be a Premier League player. So there is a scenario where that you could maybe convince somebody like that because of his age and because of where we are, or am I just clutching at the straws and dreaming?
No, I think you're right. I think there is a possibility. He's a much different stage in his career. Like you said, that Michael Smith was. He's far earlier into it, and in reality, this is this contract that he's now running out is realistically his first proper full-time contract, professional contract. So, he's got plenty of time. It seems like he's got his head screwed on. And as Dan and Joyce said, he's bought into this. He's bought into what's happening at Rotherham United. Money will come above that, obviously, over and above that every time for every footballer. It's got to do, and I fully accept that. But for me, Barlaser, out of everybody, is the most prized asset for me, because there are so few players like him around. You don't come across that quarterback, for the want of a better term, in very many teams. They're just in short supply. So people are going to be interested, but that means his price can be inflated. Ideally, in an ideal world, it'd be great for him to sign another 3-year deal, and then if he goes in January or in summer, so be it. But at least we're going to be able to get something out of that. That would be the ideal world. Well, the ideal world would be obviously for him to stay, but he's going to move on, and he's going to move on to bigger, much bigger, and much better things. So I think if I had to nail my close to mast, I've got a sneaky suspicion he might sign.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Joy, do you think? We'll finish the Barlaser chat here for now. Is he staying? Well, Mick says he thinks he might. Do you think there's a reasonable chance he'll stay? Long term, sorry.
Heart says yes. Would love to agree with Mick. Head says no. He's a young man with a young family. He's been touted as an international, possibly for Turkey going forward. So, it's going to be on a lot of radars, I would imagine, for a lot of clubs higher up the Championship, possibly even lower Premiership. He's a young man. He's got the necessary skills. He can develop his skills further, and that's something that, a team will buy into, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And who's to say it has to be an English club?
True.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's a sort of player that would well fit into some sort of continental setup.
Would, 100%.
Wouldn't it?
Mm. Yeah. Simon Thor says Barlaser to Derby County. That one would hurt. That one would hurt. Yeah. Phillox says if we go down and get nothing, then we lose both ways. We do. That's true. Is it a gamble worth taking? That's the question. Let's move on to the overall contract picture, Danny. The article in the Advertiser that's out tonight is essentially saying that Matt Taylor's not playing hardball, but he's basically saying this needs to be sorted out ASAP. He doesn't want to be going into January not knowing. And I like that, but obviously that's a fairly high-risk strategy because it could all go belly up and they could go on not making a decision now, and we try and move on, and then they might become available later on and things like that. It's high risk. How do you feel about that strategy, and how do you think it'll play out for us?
Like I say, you can see the positive and the negative from that strategy. I think Matt Taylor not suddenly going in hardball shows there is a little bit of negotiation involved with these contracts. It's not a case of, right, that's your offer, take it or leave it, or we'll sell you, or we won't offer you anything else. I think he's put the offer on the table that he thinks acceptable. He's willing to negotiate with the agents. And if anything, in my opinion, it's quite clever making the first move because we can put that offer on the table, which will probably be the low end of what we're willing to offer. The agents will come back with the high end of what we're willing to offer, and then we'll meet somewhere in the middle. So instead of waiting for the agents to go, contracts up, we want this much to renew the deal, if we make the first move and go, right, we'll offer you that for now. If you like it, it's fine. If not, we're willing to talk about it. And I think it's a good strategy with the number of players we've got out of contract. I think it's only Wiles who's got the year clause in his contract. So with Walesy, we have that safety net, but with everybody else, it's best just to test the water, see where we are and where we can meet in the middle. And so, yeah, I think it's quite smart for a new manager to do that with the players. I think it's Taylor being very, very clever with it.
Mick, do you the same? It's football, one of the strange industries where this all gets played out in public. It's really strange. No other industry really does that. But are you happy with? We don't know what's happening, but are you happy with what you've seen and hearing from the club in terms of movement on these contracts, actual movement, rather than you saying we're going to offer something and not hearing anything?
Had we not had the change of manager, then no, I wouldn't be very happy now. But obviously, because of the change in manager, then Matt Taylor's obviously sort of taken the bull by the horns and got on with it. It should have been done a long time before now, which possibly on another subject tends to suggest that the move of the previous manager was on the cards a lot longer than we were aware of as well, because it should have been done long before he left. So, yeah, it's good. It's good. Let's get it out of the way and let's clear the air, because come January, it's just going to be rumour city, isn't it? And it's bad enough as it is without the club not making any inroads to get people signed up. So, yeah, it's good. Let's see what happens. We may get some more information on Thursday night from the fans forum. We probably won't, but you never know.
Okay. Let's talk about that briefly with the fans forum. Simon Thorne says, on the subject of the rumours future, who is going to the fan forum tomorrow? What do we think / hope will be told RE the club's short, medium, and medium term future? Sorry. Joy, what are your feelings on the fans forum? I would feel like the dialogue's positive, but I always sometimes feel like these things can be, you don't get as much information you actually want sometimes.
Well, it's something that the club's been doing on a regular basis now, isn't it, for the last 2 or 3, 4 seasons? I'm not sure that we tend to, it's a bit of lip service, to be honest, personally, because they don't actually say anything new that from one year to the next, to be brutally honest. It sort of seems to be a sort of placatory sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? PR exercise to keep the fans on side. I mean, I appreciate they're doing it this time of year because it's relatively quiet. There's not a lot happening. We're only just going back into playing football again. It's pre the January window, so there's not, apart from today's little shenanigans going around. I mean, could you imagine if they'd have done this at the beginning of the season just started, when the two guys went down the road? They'd have been lynched, wouldn't they? So there's a part of me that says, yeah, well done, club. Good on you. Nice to, get that olive branch out there. A little bit of a Christmas spirit thing going on. Meeting the public, as it were. But there's part of me that thinks it's a little bit, PR exercise, and perhaps I'm just cynical because I live down south. I don't know.
One person that is good to hear from, Danny, and we're all getting to know him, so Matt Taylor, and that's sort of good. We get to hear more about him, more from him, probably more questions about his personality and things like that. So even if we just get the same sort of stuff from the sort of background, we get learning more about the man in charge, which again is a positive, I suppose. Yeah,
it is, and from the interviews that Matt Taylor's done so far, he seems to be very vastly in favour with the fans. I know he's picked up the tagline in certain circles as Handsome Matt. So I'm sorry to say, Matt, you've been superseded by the manager. Unlucky. But yeah, I mean, he comes across really well. He comes across as a bloke who obviously knows his stuff, but also he's he doesn't dress things up. He just sort of tells it how it is, especially.
He's got an edge to him. He's not scared. And,
yeah, like the stuff with the referees. Any other manager that comes out and says that, probably the only two that might get away with it is Neil Warnock and Chris Wilder, potentially. But Matt Taylor's come out, put his cards on the table and gone, look, I think we're getting an unconscious bias here. And in the past, you would have gone, whoa, manager's come out and said that. But he said, I want to keep it professional and for them to actually look at it and not just a whinging manager going on about it. I want it to be professional. So, like you say, he has that edge, but he treats it respectfully at the same time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he handles some of the questions from fans, and I think a few of them will be like his vision for the club, where is he going to take us, etc., etc. But I'm just looking forward to hearing them, to be honest.
Yeah, you'll be there, Danny. So remind me to give you login details for the podcast account, because I will forget.
Yes, please. I've had advice from the university people on how to cover it, so I have a vague idea. So hopefully it goes well.
Like it. How many times are we going to hear the P word, Mick, the Premier League word?
Yeah, well, we're going to hear it, aren't we?
We are. I mean from the board, not from fans.
Yeah. There's two sides to this argument, isn't there? And I agree with I kind of agree with both sides. You know, one side is, I'm sick of hearing about put your hand in your pocket if you're going to get us to Premier League. Don't be talking nonsense. We're never going to get to Premier League. You know, that side of it. I kind of get that side of the argument because we've been 6 years now yo-yoing up and down between league below and one below that, with no apparent massive leaps in progress. So I kind of get that side of it. But on the flip side of that, you know, when you're running a business, you need to have certain targets that you need to be aiming for. Football's a business. Rotherham United Football Club is our business, and it has been run as such, and it's been run sustainably as such. So there's no point. Sustainability can't be your target, can it? You know, you need to be reaching. You need to be setting targets that are difficult to reach, and obviously the Premier League is one of them. I am convinced that Tony Stewart genuinely believes that he can get this club to the Premier League. I think he genuinely believes it. Whether that is realistic is an entirely different matter. However, I think in his mind, it can be done. And probably one of the reasons, the basis for that is it has been done. It has been done before. There's no reason it can't be done again. But, I guess that's it, really. You know, there are two sides to the argument, and I see both of them. The reality is, I guess, that it's a really, really tough ask because this division is so competitive and there's so much money about. So you've got to have dreams, mate. You've got to have dreams. Tony's going.
Yes, that's true. Liam McGarry says he likes Taylor's mindset. Heard him saying that fans don't want to see boring football or something along those lines, but it's a very good sign moving forward. Can't wait for Saturday. Yeah. Simon Thorne says, prick Matt Taylor saying the Champions League places by 2027. We'll take that. John Morell, you've got to have ambition, but realistic ambition, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's essentially what I'm trying to say, John. You know, but you've also got to have one above that realistic ambition. If in an ideal world, this is what I want to achieve. And I think Tony Stewart has always caveated the Premier League thing with other points as well. You know, he's not just come out and said we're going to Premier League, full stop. But that's the headline that people grab into.
Always.
Yeah.
Coming about the contra bits, Joy, let's talk about the two others, Ben Wiles and Chio, in a bit more detail before we move on to Bristol City. Chio's sort of the one, because he's out of contract. He's the one I could potentially see going in January, because we could attract a semi-decent fee for him, even though he's out of contract. What do you feel like chance of keeping Chio? I feel really, really low that it'll stay beyond this season.
Again, I don't think there's much difference, in my opinion, between the likelihood of him and Barlas staying, to be honest. You know, Chio's already made his name on the international scene. You know, he's out there. He's well known now. And, you know, he comes across really well when he speaks to the media as well. And, you know, you've got to appreciate that, you know, it is a short career that these lads have. You know, and they're not very, you know, I mean, they're not young lads anymore. They're in the early 20s. So they need to sort of grasp that opportunity if it arises to move on to better things for themselves and their families, you know. And who can begrudge them that? I mean, we can't, you know, say that Chio hasn't been good for us, because he has. I mean, apart from the latter end of the season before last, when he was incapacitated, which I think was incremental in our not staying up along with COVID, but the fact that he was and that missing that goal at bloody Barnsley, but it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't go in January. He's definitely going in the summer.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't set me off about Barnsley away in COVID season, Joey.
Yes, let's not. Let's move on. Yeah, let's move on. Right, let's talk about the game. The game is obviously going to be on Saturday, Bristol City. 12:30 kickoff to allow 8 people to get back to watch the England game at 7 p.m. It's difficult to know what to expect, Andy, because we've had a month off, and they had the game against Sheffield United, or the double game against Sheffield United, and then a lot of players played midweek against Gillingham in a very strong team in the reserve team fixture. But it's almost like a pre-season. They've also almost been a mini pre-season. So I don't know whether to expect them all to be hitting the ground running because they've had 4 weeks off, or whether we need to allow both teams a bit of leeway to feel the way back into competitive football. What do you think?
I personally think it's going to be like the start to a new season. I think it's going to be one of them where if your team hasn't had that many players off on international duty, which, excuse me, we haven't. We've had Chio and that's it. It is just going to be like a fresh season. I mean, there are a few clubs who have had players away at the World Cup. Sheffield United have had Ndiaye with Senegal, and he went from Humphrey's pocket to Harry Maguire's. So that was quite funny. But weirdly, our game is kicking off at 12:30, but Sheffield United isn't. Theirs is at 3:00. Yeah. So it's a very strange, staggered thing. Like, it might play into our benefit that the team's travelled a long way and it's an early kickoff, or it might just turn into the opening day fiasco with form's gone out the window, even though you've sort of been training a little bit. I really don't know what to expect, because this has really never happened before. Like, it could be Matt Taylor's been very regimented with training. It might be that Cyprus has helped us and we do hit the ground running, but we also have to allow that leniency, at least in the back of our minds, that it could be like opening day against Swansea all over again, where form's out the window and you see the little pinches of quality, but it's not quite all together because they've not been on a professional football pitch since November. It's going to be a very, very interesting game, to use my old cliche. But I don't know, seeing how a few players performed in the reserve game against Bolton, I could see, your likes of Kelly being a very powerful impact sub in that game, because he's quite clearly fit enough, because I think he did, 18 minutes-ish in the reserve game. Same with Connor Washington. He did really well. So I think it could play into our favour, if I'm being honest. I really, really do.
It's strange as some games that we obviously got this game rearranged quite a long time ago. There's only 3 early kickoffs in the Championship. The rest of them are 3 o'clock kickoffs. I assume there would have been a blanket. The other ones, I can understand why Swansea haven't changed their fixture. But strange, very strange. The closest thing we've got to compare to this, Mick, is the COVID sort of shutdown and the Premier League return in 2020, where they shut down in March time and got back going in July. Now, I know that was different because their training facilities at the time were limited because of COVID. But I remember very vividly that was the first week or two of that Premier League restart was terrible. The players weren't ready. They were clearly not played football for 4 and 5 months or whatever it was. I accept that we're going to have a bit, a better training setup and almost a better pre-season to almost a restart. But do you think it could have a negative impact in terms of not in the flow anymore, are they?
No, they're not. But I can't see it having a massive impact personally. It's like almost like, a couple of weeks of snow in it, and maybe a missing out on a cup game if you're out at cup or something. It's not massive. It's not a big deal at all. And they've played a couple of games, albeit not competitive games, but they've played a couple of friendlies. They've had a week away. They've been training for the whole of that period. So I can't see there being much difference, to be honest. I'll obviously stand corrected when it's 7 apiece at half time, but I don't think it's going to be much different.
Okay, fair enough. And on the reserve game, Joy, like Danny says, Georgie Kelly got almost a full game. Connor Washington played plenty of minutes. Those were the two ones pre their sort of shutdown that we were worried about, particularly Georgie Kelly. But he scored a couple of goals, I think, played plenty of minutes. That you'd assume that puts him in contention for Saturday.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I was interested watching the feedback from that match yesterday. And like you say, it's good to see that Washington and Georgie were back in harness. Because, I mean, when he went off clutching his hamstring just before, the breakdown for the World Cup, I thought he'd be out at least till gone Christmas, to be brutally honest. So I was really surprised to see him playing the majority of the game yesterday. Washington, I mean, I was never actually clear on what the issue was with him, but having both back playing the majority of a game, I know it was only Bolton's reserve, but that's a better outcome than I would have anticipated. And had we carried on playing, we'd have been without them for 3-4 weeks, and who knows what the impact might have been on that. So perhaps it's a positive, at the end of the day. And let's be brutally honest, we're all starting from the same starting point tomorrow. As you said, Mick, Bristol have had the same amount of time off as we have had. I don't know what sort of arrangements they've had in place, and they've had warm weather training, but I assume most teams who can afford it have done that. So we're not, we're all starting from the same starting point again. And they actually are below us, aren't they, in the league by a point?
Yeah.
So, and when you look at the squad that they've got, you'd think they'd be a little bit better off than us, because they've got some quite significant players in that team, internationals, etc., across the board. So, what we've got to hold on is the fact that up until now we've been, really successful, and to my mind, surprisingly so. And I think this league actually is very much of a muchness. There's not much of a difference between the bottom and the top, seeing what I've seen so far. Where anybody can beat anybody, and nobody's running away with it, and nobody's detached at the bottom.
I think you're right. Right, that segues into the scouting report. So we're now going to hear Mick talk to the Bristol City podcast. I can't remember the name, but you'll hear from them in a moment. So our four faces will disappear, and you'll hear the scouting report for 10 minutes. So then we'll be giving our squad lineup prediction and all that nonsense. We will be back in 10 minutes. So.
You tell me where you're from. Bristol City, obviously, Patch, but just give me the podcast number 10.
Absolutely. Yeah. So 3 Peaps in a Podcast. And we do post-match reaction to every Bristol City match as well as Bristol City content. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, not a problem. As I said to you before we came on, this is usually Matt's domain. So people who follow New York Talk will realise straight away that I'm as unprofessional as they come. So if we can get through 10 minutes without me making any more mistakes, it will be a first. So anyway, thanks for coming on. So obviously you're making the long journey up, or some of you will be making a long journey up to New York Stadium on Saturday. First question, and it seems to have been a bit of a controversial one. The change of kickoff time. How when that was announced by our club, it seemed to stir up a bit of a hornet's nest amongst Bristol City fans. How is it now that England have qualified for the quarterfinals?
Well, I'm glad. Obviously, we're going to have to set off a lot earlier than we anticipated, but I'm kind of glad because we're going to come back to Bristol and watch it in a fan village local to me. So I'm actually quite glad that the fixture has been brought forward. Obviously, we're hoping we can get away quickly and there's no snow or road closures or anything like that. So I think we're hoping to be back in Bristol by 6:30 at the latest, so we can watch the England game. But yes, it's a stroke of genius.
Yeah, well, which makes a change for our club, I'll be honest with you. They've not been very forward thinking in the past, but to be fair, I'm being a bit unfair now, but certainly it wouldn't have happened a few years ago. And at least on the upside, you won't have to sit in Rotherham and watch it, which would have been, who wants that?
We also don't want to be sat on the motorway watching it either.
Good point. Well made. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Bristol City currently sitting 18th in the Championship. In terms of what you were anticipating at the start of the season, how does that sort of fit in with that?
Yeah, I mean, my prediction was for us to finish top of the bottom half. I still think we've got enough in the arsenal of our squad to do that. We've had a big loss in Cal Naismith, who seemed to be driving forward play and being on the front foot. He did give away a few goals, but he's also been a catalyst for a number of good performances. So he's hopefully going to be back on Saturday. So he'll come back into the back three. So that should shore things up a bit. And I'm confident. I'm confident coming in to this game. And then we've got so I think it's 4 games before the end of the year and the transfer window opens. So yeah, I'm confident of picking up a few points over the next 4 games. Hopefully starting with 3 points at Rotherham on Saturday.
Well, I can tell you one thing: you will know you've been in a game once you leave New York Stadium on Saturday. And if you do go away with the 3 points, you'll have had to work very, very hard for it. It's
going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see how both teams have been impacted by this sort of 3-week break. I don't think it's obviously it happened during COVID, but that was, I think, much longer than 3 weeks. We've had one pre-season friendly, if you like, a game behind closed doors against Southampton at the weekend, which I think we won 2-0. So that's a pre-season friendly, if you like. But it's just seeing how they all react, seeing how the break has impacted different people. Some of them have gone off on holiday with their families and enjoyed a bit of sun, etc. Antoine Semenyo has only just finished in the World Cup, so obviously he probably won't be in the squad, I wouldn't have thought, for Saturday. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how both teams cope with that break.
Yeah, it is absolutely. It's a really unusual situation, and to be fair, on the running to the break as well, it was absolute chaos for us. I don't know about, well, I said chaos. It was a hectic schedule, 2 games a week for probably 4 weeks on the run up to it, which, it obviously takes it out of teams. So I think they'll have been ready for the break, won't they? So we will see.
We had in the week leading up to the international break, we had a dire performance at home to Lincoln in the Carabao Cup, which we want to forget as soon as possible. But then we put in a good performance at home to Watford. It was 0-0, but obviously they're up in the playoff positions, and all we couldn't do was have that cutting edge and finish off a couple of chances. So we finished quite strong in comparison. So yeah, it's whether we can pick up where we left off and put that shift in and have that killer edge as well.
Well, I mean, that's the key to being successful in the Championship, isn't it?
Yeah.
The difference in quality between top and bottom is not massive.
Anyone can beat anyone.
Absolutely, and it's all about who can actually hit the back of the net. So we will wait and see. So who, other than Naismith, assuming that he plays, who else should be looking out for on Saturday?
So I probably think the lineup will be Max O'Leary in goal. Then you'll have Zach Viner on the right of a back three, Cam Pring on the left of the back three with Naismith in the middle. Then Matty James, centre midfield, flanked by Joe Williams and Alex Scott. And Alex Scott is a young player who's come through the ranks quite quickly. Signed him from Guernsey, and he was in the first team in the academy for 18 months and then straight into the first team, and he's caught some eyes. Obviously he won the Euros with the under-20s as well, so he's someone that's on the lips of a lot of people. I'm hoping he can stay with us to the end of the season at least, because I think if he goes up to the Premier League now, he will be probably on the bench and getting a little bit of time. So I'm hoping that he can see out the season with us, see how we finish, and hopefully obviously stay with us next season. But that time will tell on that one. In the game at Watford, we also had 2 wing backs. Andy Vyman was right wing back and Jade De Silva on the left. So it'll be either Andy Vyman or Mark Sykes on the right. And then Tommy Conway who's a young player who's come through the academy from the age of 8, who's got an opportunity in the recent season, and he is absolutely flying. He's our top goal scorer at the moment, and him with Naki Wells, they seem to have developed a really good understanding. So they, as a pair, work very well. So, you know, if everyone's on song, everyone's performing well and not too jet lagged from their holidays, then I'm confident we can pick up some points.
Excellent, very good. You just reminded me actually, Zach Viner. He spent
on loan.
He was on loan with us, and I really rated him. Really
Where did he
rated
play
him.
for you?
He played right wing back.
Okay.
So we didn't, and obviously when you came to our place last time in the Championship, he had an absolute howler of a game. And to be
he's
fair,
a player. He's a player who actually was completely out of favour towards the end of last season, middle of last season, who I thought was going to be gone, you know, very, very early on in the transfer window in the summer. But he has turned it completely around, and he's one of the first names on the team sheet at the moment as a right centre back. He's played right back for us. Never really tried him at right wing back, I should say. He even played in midfield a couple of games as well. So he is versatile. But he just seems to have got his confidence back now as well, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear he was a confidence player, and to be fair, I'm saying that I liked him, like as I just did there. Some of our fans will probably slate me for that because it wasn't popular with everybody, and to this day I still don't understand why. He may have had a couple of bad performances, but who doesn't, you know? And he seemed to end up being a bit of a scapegoat for some fans, which was a real surprise for me. But anyway, that's football, I guess, isn't it?
See what reception he gets on Saturday.
Well, I mean, because of the nightmare he had last time he came, I don't think people will be that interested. To be fair, I think much like yourselves, we're going to be really keen to see what the international breaks brought, for the want of a better term, what the World Cup breaks brought. And we've got a new manager, as you probably know, and he's now had time to work with the squad. The signs before the international break were really good, really positive. So now he's had that three weeks to work with them. Fingers crossed he'll be able to build on that. So we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of managers, just a quick one. Towards the back end of last season, your manager was coming in for quite on social media for quite a bit of flack. Where are Bristol City fans on him at the moment?
Well, I think if we'd have put in a similar performance to what we did in the Lincoln game in the Carabao Cup on the Saturday, on the last game at home to Watford, I think it would be swaying towards the majority, probably in the Pearson out camp. But Lincoln game was an anomaly. We made 7 or 8 changes, whatever it was. We're hoping we would have had enough to sort of put a performance in against Lincoln, but I think that just has to be written off. And the performance against Watford was really good, all bar goal. And I think it's probably still in the balance, but swaying towards Pearson in the majority. I think people are generally wanting more change, more progress than they're seeing. However, what the cards he was dealt and the sort of the squad he inherited and the wage bill he inherited was a lot to untangle, and it's taken him longer than he anticipated it would. And I think it's taken the fans aren't seeing that level of progress that they want. However, you've got to give him more time to actually have another transfer window, see if we can bring in a couple more diamonds in January, hold on to some of our better players, and stay relatively injury-free as well, which is a utopian position for all championship clubs. But he's supported well by the academy. A recent game we had 6 or 7 players in from the academy. Academy graduates. They might have been in the first team for a while, but that coupled with signing on some tried and tested players that he trusts, like Andy King and Matty James, and blending that in with a few a few extra signings from the lower leagues, if you like. I think we'll judge him at the end of the season. So if we finish top of the bottom half, I think that people would see that as progress and generally would want to see what else he's got next season.
Yeah. So still some credit in the bank at the moment then.
Credit in the bank at the moment, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so finally, very quickly, predictions for Saturday. What are you thinking?
Very cold.
Yes, I can guarantee that.
I think we can guarantee that.
It's golden hot.
Okay, yeah, looking forward to that. But no, look, I'm one of the most optimistic Bristol City fans you'll probably come across. So I go into every game expecting a victory and fully expect us to get a 2-1 away victory on Saturday.
Okay, well, hopefully you're wrong, but
I wonder who Sean Goto wants to win this one. That's the question. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it would be nice to ask him, and he's one of he's one on our list of people to get on the podcast at some stage if we can achieve that. But we'll see.
I was lucky enough to meet him a couple of weeks ago. He came down to the Bristol City Watford game. We did. There was a pitch parade of the 97-98 promotion team, which he was obviously part of. And absolutely lovely guy, really nice, down to earth, brought his family down. And he's certainly someone I'll be trying to get on my podcast as well.
If you get his number, let me know.
Send him your way.
Absolutely. Listen, Patch, thanks very much indeed for coming on, and good luck for the rest of the season after Saturday.
Yeah, might see you across the pitch.
I'll give you a wave.
There we go. Thank you very much to Patch from the Peaps In A Podcast. Let's move on and concentrate on. We'll do first a ref watch first of all, because why not? Not a too negative one, to be honest with you. Happy memories of this fellow, Samuel Barrett. He last refereed us at Gillingham last season. I can't remember exactly what happened in that game. Something positive, probably. As a Yorkshireman. I don't recall ever any Yorkshireman referee.
I do.
Go on.
Darren England.
Oh, God. You've got to let it go.
Just saying. No, I didn't say anything about his refereeing ability, did I? I just said he was a Yorkshireman.
He's a Premier League referee now.
He's in the Premier League, yeah.
Didn't he play Freddie Krueger? Oh, no, that's a different fella. Never mind.
He plays next goal winner down in England.
There we go. He's only left us 3 times. Gillingham, Papa John's draw against Man City, and the 1-1 draw against Lincoln last year. He does seem to be up and coming. He's done a few youth international games, so he does seem to be one that's on the pathway to the top. But this is only his second ever championship game. So it's, although he is clearly on the way up, it's going to be a step up for him. So hopefully we don't notice him. Much like we didn't notice him at Gillingham. I did not notice a referee at Gillingham. So let's hope that continues. Let's stop a bit briefly, Danny, and just mention the 56-minute minutes applause for Lee Carpenter. I thought I'd let you mention this, so I'll let you explain to people what's happening.
Yeah, so I was contacted about sharing the Just Giving page for Lee, who's very sadly passed away. And the Just Giving page is to get him a plaque at New York Stadium. He's been on the Kimmy Park buses numerous times. I didn't know him personally, but he's always been a regular voice and a good friend of a lot of people who travel. And yeah, they've asked me to share that they're planning a 56-minute applause for Lee. So I invite all Millers fans to come together for Lee in that minute. And the Just Giving page is still live and has been tweeted out by New York Talk and has been shared on all the groups on Facebook. So if you want to drop a bit of money in, it'd be much appreciated. So yeah, everyone come together for Lee on 56, if you please.
Absolutely. I'll go to our head-to-head record mix favourite bit of the show. We have won our last 2 games, Bristol City. They were one of the teams who did the double over in the championship season 2 years ago. We are unbeaten in our last 10 home games as well, which is a very good record. The last defeat back in 1995. I think with the auto win 95-96 season, the auto windscreen shield season. Joy, what do you think to expect from Saturday? We talked about the impact of the international break, but what do you want to see from Rotherham United on Saturday? Do you want to see back where we left off, or do you think we'll see maybe a bit of an evolution of Matt Taylor's style now he's had some time with the players?
Well, hopefully a combination of both, because we weren't in bad nick when the break occurred. To say he came in and had to work sort of on the hoof, as it were, with the squad, I think he's done excellently. So the fact that he's had, that 3-week period to sort of get them on the training pitches and go through what he wants and what his views are for the team and for what he wants to get out of them. I'm hoping it's a positive outcome on Saturday, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about lineups, Mick. Victor's going to start in goal, barring injury, which we haven't heard about. There's no pre-match presser before we record. So we're going to assume Victor's in goal. That's where the easy decision is. In terms of the defence, they then have a conversation, I suppose, because Richard Wood did not start either the last 2 games, if I think I'm right in saying, before the break. I think it was Cam Humphreys, Lee Peltier, Wes Harding, who were brilliant. All 3 of them were absolutely brilliant. Richard was the captain. Generally speaking, Richard Wood's is the man that comes in and plays those minutes. That's the real question for me. In the entire starting 11, do you put Richard Wood back in or do you keep it as it were?
I think you're right. I think that is the only question for me from the starting 11. Well, no, there's 2, because obviously Peter Kioso can't play because he's still injured. So, but Brooke Norton-Cuffy just slots in there, and then does Lee Peltier play or Richard Wood? That's it, in my view. But we don't know what they've been doing in the close season. I nearly said in the last 4 weeks. We don't know what Matt Taylor's sort of vision is. I would argue it's probably pretty much like what we saw at the end of before the international break, but with a little bit more fine tuning. So I can't see the formation changing. It's just whether Woody comes in for Peltier. That for me is the only question, and I would suggest possibly not.
So you would keep Harding over Peltier?
No. I'd have Peltier, Harding, and Cam Humphreys in that.
No, if you're going to bring Woody back in, you would take Peltier
I said I wouldn't
out.
bring Woody back in.
Okay.
Apologies.
You said either Woody or Peltier, didn't you? So,
yeah, and finalised by saying I wouldn't change it from Luton.
Okay, fair enough.
Come on, Matt, keep up.
I was just clarifying, Danny. Where do you go? Where do you go on this one? Because I think it is a tough one. Because I always want Richard Wood to play, but again, they were brilliant.
Yeah, we're only really undone at Luton by an absolute killer deflection as well. So I'm inclined to agree with Mick. Keep the defence the same, injuries and little niggles permitting, of course. Harding, Humphreys, and Peltier in the back for me.
Fair enough. Joy, any? Are you agreeing with all these? Keep it the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought they were fine for those last 2 games. United and Luton, they were quite compact, quite, like you said, if it wasn't for that dodgy deflection, we wouldn't have drawn that match at Luton. Very solid.
Yeah, hopefully that continues. Are you happy with Colin Bramall to start left hand side, Mick?
Yeah, 100%. Brooke Norton-Cuffy on right, absolutely, no issues whatsoever.
Cool. And then, Danny, you keep the formation the same. We obviously did what do we call it? A 3-5-1-1, if you want to call it that. Do you think he'll continue that same way, or could you see him going back to 2 strikers?
Very, very good question. I think the 3-5-1-1 gives Wilesy a bit more freedom, playing in front of the more. It's not really a flat midfield. It's almost like it's a 3. Can't even describe it, but it's just not.
1-1.
Yeah, it's just not a flat 5 across the middle, is it? It's like a 3-3 wide 2-1-1 sort of. Anyway, but Wilesy playing just in behind the striker, I think that's the easiest way to explain it. It does give him a lot more freedom and has allowed Wiles to show what he is capable of. He showed it against Sheffield United and against Luton. And again, depending on what Matt Taylor's been doing in training, because of course we don't know because it's top secret. I think he might stick to that system, certainly until Georgie and Wash are back to 100% fitness and 100% 90-minute fitness. And then on the back of that, that's when Matt Taylor might begin his little tweaks. How can I fit Wiles into that system and have more firepower, etc., etc. If anything, I can see it being the 3-5-1-1 to start with, and then if we need a bit more firepower, or at least, as Matt Taylor's shown, he's not scared to bring on a striker later in the game, that's when the formation will start to change a little bit. But I can see Wilesy being that one in behind the striker and just keeping the system the same, I think.
Yeah, I think I probably agree. I think it'd be harsh to take, for example, Jimmy. Yeah, you'd have to take Jimmy Lindsay out, and I think that'd be really, really harsh because I think he's been brilliant since he's come back in.
I mean, Taylor has found the system where, all right, fair enough, it's not normally best to play with your best three players all at once in case one does get injured, but he's found the system where we can play Ben Wiles, Ollie Rathbun, Jamie Lindsay, and even potentially Dan Barlasser all in the same system. I mean, the way he's been able to find that is fantastic. And also we've got Scott High and Akima Doffin as backup at the same time, which isn't exactly a bad thing at all. And again, another reason why I think Wiles will start, because you've got your best men in the middle of the park at the same time.
Yeah, I think I agree. We then come to the strikers then, Joy. Don Almarie says, do we think he will start Eves? He does seem to like him. I suppose this all depends on Bristol City in terms of their defence. If they've got 3 6'7" defenders, it might not be so bright to play Chio because he might get bullied. But although that might work for Chio because he'll be quicker than them. And it's difficult to know who he's going to be. But would you think he'll start with Chio like he has done, or could you see Eves coming in?
I can't see there's any reason to change the team from Luton, to be brutally honest, because they were absolutely fine. And Tom Eves, when he did come on at Luton, he did make a difference. He did add a different dimension. Yeah, I know he gave the free kick away that led to the goal, but I think, and let's be honest, let's hope this 3-week period has helped Eves in getting up and working with the team and on his fitness, etc., so that when he comes back, he slots in, more comfortably than he has been. Though I could see in the last few games that he has been involved that he was improving. I don't think he was the scapegoat as much as people would like to think he was up to that point. But no, I think he would go with the team that he set out at Luton, unless there's something that we don't know, or something that, like you said, that Bristol are putting out there that we need to react to.
There's a little bit of him that wants Eves to start just to see the meltdown. That would be pretty special on Twitter, to be honest with you, if Tom Eves started. Harshly, obviously, I like Tom Eves. But it'd upset a lot of people, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. I've just remembered that I now need to change my mind about Richard Wood starting. I think I'll be starting Richard Wood because just basically to do Bristol City a favour, because Naki Wells really likes it in Richard Wood.
Oh yeah,
doesn't he? He finds it a really comfortable place to be in his back pocket. So do Naki Wells a favour. He's been around a while now. He's getting on. Let's give him a comfortable place to stay on Saturday afternoon.
What about Naki Wells and Richard Wood? Yeah. Naki Wells is a brilliant footballer, and I'm not going to say it, actually. We'll mention that after the game. I'm not going to finish my sentence because that would be tempting fate, wouldn't it? Let's move on to. We've gone through the start. We're not starting lineup. Let's go to predictions, and then we can wrap it up. Danny, prediction for the Rotherham game on Saturday, please.
Oh, football! I actually have some vague understanding about. Thank the Lord. Again, like I've said, it could be a little bit of a hit and miss game because they've not been on the pitch in front of fans for what's going to be just shy of a month. Can't remember the last time we were at New York Stadium, to be fair. We had that many away games. When was the last time we were at New York? Was it the whole game? No, surely not.
I don't think it will. Hang on. I'll get my list up here. Norwich.
Okay, fair enough. Can't remember that game, to be fair. But yeah, I think it is going to be a hit and miss game. I think one goal could seal it, to be honest. I think there was a comment from John Morell earlier saying Bristol City are a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. I'm inclined to agree, to be honest. You'll find out exactly how the game's going to pan out within the first 10-15 minutes. If it goes in our favour, could see a similar scoreline to last time against Bristol City at home. If not, could be a very tough day. So I'm hoping the Bristol City turn up that we played last season and we get a steady 2-0 win out of it.
2-0 win. Like it. Simon Thorne says 3-1 to the Millers, easy. Glass half full every day. One day I'll be right. I'll say hello if you see Danny at the thingy tomorrow night, on Thursday night. Kim Hayward says 2-1. Harvey Collick says 2-1 to us. YouTube Yoda says 2-1 as well. Terry Fenbit says 2-0. Lots of positivity. Joy, what do you reckon?
I think I'd go 2-0 as well. To us.
Like
Mick?
Well, I'm hoping that Nigel Pearson's been away on the British Managers Association's tour of wherever it is they go on their tours, because he's in that level, isn't he? He's in the sort of Sam Allardyce camp of managers. So fingers crossed he's taking his eye off the ball and they turn up being a dog's dinner, and it's 3-0 Millers is what I'm going for. I want to counteract Patch's enthusiasm. It's a feeling that it's a bit of a team like Rotherham situation, that one for me. So I think we're gonna wind out comfortable winners.
Fair enough.
Bristol with the tails between the legs.
I hope so. I'm going to go 1-0. I don't think it'll be high scoring. Incoming 3-3. John Morell says 4-1 to the Millers and hopefully Pearson to get booted. Surprise me. A typical championship wanting to sack a manager first game back after a 4-week break. So championship.
Is John suggesting Birmingham are looking for a new manager?
Still could be worse. They could be looking for a new ground. Sorry, Coventry.
Oh no, what a nightmare that is for Coventry. Yeah, we don't know enough about it to comment on it, but I know it's a disaster.
Shambles, isn't it?
Shambles.
It's Mark Ashley. Enough said.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to Rotherham United mentions? It's been a Rotherham United only podcast for the first time in about a month, which I've enjoyed. Anything else we want to cover before we wrap this up?
Should we just have a little sprinkling of the World Cup? Bear in mind, it's still going on.
As long as you can promise not to get mixed started.
Danny, I saw what you put in that. So I'm not biting for this one.
Oh, shame. I thought I'd get him with the Ronaldo chat on how Mardy he's been, but shame.
I did tweet out last night. We 1 minute 31 seconds into the second half before Tilsley managed to spanner in Ronaldo for the 36th time that game, and he sat on bench, man. Honestly, unbelievable scenes. Clive Tilsley has to be one of the worst commentators I have ever heard.
He's not even in like the bottom three.
Oh, mate, he's not in the bottom three, and I'll tell you why he's not in the bottom three. He's way below that. He's absolute garbage.
Okay.
Yeah, happy now, Danny.
Not quite, because I want to mention the fact that the pundits mentioned Ronaldo's name 5 times in the post-match when all they did was celebrate 2 goals on the touchline and then score an offside goal. And they still mentioned him 5 times. And you legit saw the moment someone went, you can stop mentioning his name now in the ear. Because they just started saying, oh, he's this, that, and other. It's like, were they having the drinking game in the studio? Because I was going to at home and they said it for a 6th time and they stopped me. Which is really cool.
The worst bit about it entirely was when he came on and the noise in the stadium, and you saw his smug little face because he knew that everybody were happy that he were coming on. That was the worst thing about it entirely. That sums up that type of modern football. We will never experience that as Rotherham fans, really. But that type of modern football is just, I hate it. It's all about one man, and I don't like it. As good as he is,
And
Was.
the funniest thing is replacement scored 3 goals and got an assist. And I tell you what,
they were amazing.
without Ronaldo, Portugal looks scary.
They look
Like
good.
they look
They worried me that
scary.
we might face them in semis.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
Anyway.
Switzerland were dire.
Yes, they
Yeah.
were. They were.
I'm saying that I turned it off at 2-0 because I couldn't stand watching Portugal celebrate anymore.
Okay, moving on.
But anyway,
John Morell finally says he likes Clive Tilsley, especially with Ali McCoist, better than the Dross of Dublin or Lee Dixon. I mean,
Alan McCoy,
any football game with Ali McCoist is improved. So I think I could comment it, and with Alan McCoist, I think it'd be quite good. So there we go. Right, we'll end it there because we've gone off topic again, obviously. Please do subscribe to YouTube. If you're not already on there, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will be back on Sunday evening, where we'll be looking back at Rotherham United's game against Bristol City. And if England win, we'll talk about England. If they don't, we'll pretend it never happened, because that's what we do as England fans, obviously. If you're on iTunes, Spotify, again, please subscribe. That'll be out Monday morning, back to the normal schedule for the foreseeable future. Joy, it's been a pleasure to have you with us for the podcast. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Mick, we almost got through a full episode without a rant, but you just couldn't. You had to take that bait, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, Danny threw the line out, didn't he? He threw that line out there.
You
So
could just not take the bait.
and also, I found out what soporific means. So
Go on.
it just means sending people to sleep, essentially.
Dull.
Yeah, you could say dull. Do you want me to read it?
I mean, why not? We're here, so why not?
We're here, aren't we? Tending to induce drowsiness or sleep.
Yeah.
Well, I know how to relieve my overthinking at night. Just listen to Mick. Send me right to sleep.
You start with them Twitch channels, Mick. You know, where people just make.
Or one of them
noises.
ASMR channels.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I could do that, can I? Just me ranting about referees. It's enough to send anybody to sleep, isn't it?
You can just picture Mick being really close to the microphone and going, and Gavin Ward, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweating that. Yeah.
Something for everybody.
Anyway, Danny, thank you for being with us again tonight. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, always a pleasure, lads.
And enjoy tomorrow night at the Fans Forum.
I will do. I'm looking forward to me pie and peas. I need to get
Pie
a
and
case
peas
to
with it
review.
all.
Yeah, honestly,
bloody hell.
£3 for Fans Forum and pie and peas. Living dream, mate.
That's not bad.
Hey, you want to have a word with that Kev Johnson? He charged £30 for the same deal.
Here's a question though, and I'll just chuck this in whilst we're still live. Shall I do a catering pie review at New York Stadium tomorrow?
Why not? Do it. Did you see you got mentioned in a Coventry tweet about your pie review?
Did I?
They just tweeted the link out to people to watch it, but yeah, so the whole Coventry fans watched it apparently. I don't know what they said. So let you know. Anyway, this is conversations for later. Anyway, thank you all. You're bored by now. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Right.
Bye.
Ravel, vicious, but brilliant. Mule with it. Wood's got round the back, and Richie Wood has done it again. The magic man has come up with another trick. Well, here's a chance to seal it.